Okay, then here's a nice supplementary video. Um, Went over this in class. A few people obviously were interested in it, but I'm going to go over this for everyone. This you don't need to do any of this. If you want to stay away from this kind of stuff, you totally can. But I really want people to at least try it and understand how cool this kind of stuff is, and how useful it is through the game making process. Because number one, just because we're the game artist doesn't mean we don't understand. We don't have to understand anything technical. We still have to understand the technical side of things, the technical limitations of our project, how things can be implemented, and then that just makes us even more valuable and attractive to employers. So what I'm going to go over here is the basics of starting to mess with materials to start doing some cool stuff. So what I've got here is I've got a basic material set up and applied to a cube. So if I actually look at the material, this is what it is. So we've got a color map, we've got just a straight up value controlling roughness, and then we've got a null map, and we can see the results of that on there very nicely. It looks very, very nice, all good. But maybe in the project, maybe I want to have a little bit more information. Maybe I want to have more detail applied to the mesh, more normal information applied to the mesh, but it's to the point where, it's such fine detail that maybe the resolution of the map isn't allowing it to come through. This is a 4K map that's applied to there, so it's already quite big. But even at 4K, if that information isn't being read right, processed well enough, if it's like the nice information's turning all grainy and horrible, 4K is not going to help us. There's no point going to 8K, and we're never going to go to 16K and 32K. Pardon me. So I want to add more information. I want to add more normal detail to this object. How do I do that? And then we're also going to look at how we can set up some parameters in our materials, so that we can be very, very efficient and also have lots of different variations in material without having loads of data being used, because data is still a big thing in games, and materials are actually quite expensive, especially when you go for really complex materials with lots of things going on them. They can get very heavy, very, very data intensive. So if we can save ourselves data and file sizes by being a bit clever, that's awesome, and that's what we're going to look at. So, like I said, I've got my material here, and it's got a very basic setup. This is a 4K map currently, which is all well and good, but number one, what if I want to change that? What if this is too big or too small? Or what if I'm applying this to a surface like this? So currently I've applied a marble flooring to this flooring, and it's just far too big. This is not good. This is not good. What I want to control is the tiling of this. And it doesn't mean that I have to set up loads of individual little bits of geometry for my flooring. It means I can have one big piece of flooring, and I can use a tile setup in my material to control that. So let's go do that, and we'll see that happen here. So I'm going to go into my material. Here's my material. Control Shift S whenever I'm saving, so it does an overall save all. And what I'm going to do is set up a very basic control system that will allow me to control the tiling of both my color and my normal map. So what that is going to use is these UV plugs on our texture sampler here. It's going to use these UV plugs, and I can set numbers into that to tile, all that kind of jazz, whatever. That's very rudimentary. What if I want to control it on the fly? So what I've got to do is set up a system, like I said. So number one, I'm going to set up a texture coordinate, like this. Texture coordinate. This is basically giving me access to the U tiling and the V tiling, basically how much it tiles either on the X or the Z, or the X and Z, X and Y, or U and V, anything like that. That gives me access to that. But to control those, I also need two other things. I need two constants. So it's just another one of these. So we know how to make those. So if I want to make just something, a variable which is just a 0 to whatever number, I press 1. Well, I hold 1 and click. Hold 1 and click. So I make two of these. So what these are going to do, one is going to control the U value, and one is going to control the V value. And I'm going to set up a simple little network that basically allows me to have access to that. So, well, number one, what I want to do is set up something called an append. And in this context, I don't really know why it's called append, because we're not adding. What this append node is doing, what we're going to do is add this append vector, at the top here, append vector. What this is doing is basically allowing us to take control of the U with this and the V with this. So what I'm going to do is plug this top one here into A. This is going to be controlling the U value. And the bottom one here into B. This is going to be controlling the B value. And then I'm going to use a multiply node. So I'm going to hold M, clicking grey space to make a multiply. And I'm basically going to, the top value is where I put my texture coordinates node. And the bottom value is where I put my new append. So sometimes we use in this context, sometimes we use multiply like we would do inside Photoshop to multiply values. Sometimes we use it for different uses. And I will be completely honest, some of this information I just know through either experimentation or go and look it up online or anything like that. I don't thoroughly understand why we use such a node, but I always know that we use that node to do that thing. So the append in this context, what I'm using this for is to take one value to control U and another value to control V. And then the multiply is basically saying, right, taking those two values, they're going to be controlling these. Cool. And then I plug that into both the UVs of my texture and the UV of my material. That way, I can start controlling stuff with this. And you'll see, actually, if I unplug these again, I have my marble texture on my surface. It's all nice and good. Made it a bit bigger so you can see. But then when I plug those into the U and V section, all that information goes away. It just becomes a kind of a blank slate. That's because we've got in these values here, we've got 0 in each of them. So currently there's nothing tiling in U and there's nothing tiling in V. But if I put 1 in value A, and then 1, see it, there you go, took a bit to upload to update. You can see there we're getting streaks because now we're tiling across one direction. And then if I put put 1 in this second value in the B value, now we get our tile back. So that's what's happening. And what I can do is I can put like 2 inside B, and you can see that now we're actually starting to compress and stretch it, so it's more like a compressed marble. You sometimes see that where the marble's more kind of long diamond shapes rather than big square shapes. I can do whatever, you know, I can put 10 in there, and that's going to tile in 10. And that's all good. So, awesome, we're all good. Are we finished? No, we're not. What we're going to do now is, first of all, be very, very, we're going to start being neat. So I'm going to select all this little network, and I'm going to press C. And what that does, it puts it in a comment box. And the great thing about this comment box is UV tiling. I can name it, and anything I put inside this box, I can just grab and move it around. It makes it very neat, especially when our nodes might get very busy. So that's good. What I'm going to do now is the really important thing is I'm going to click on this value, going to A. I'm going to right click on it, and then at the top when it says convert to parameter, I'm going to convert to parameter and just call this utiling. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. On this one, which is going into B, I'm going to right click, go to convert to parameter. I'm going to call this V-tiling. Now what I've set up here is things that will get exposed later on, so I can actually adjust these settings somewhere else, so I don't have to be here to adjust them. I can adjust them somewhere else. But what I'm doing here is setting like the default parameters. So right away, what I've got is this. Super good. So I'm going to Control Shift S to save all. I'm going to come in here. So nothing's changed so far. What I'm going to do, and this is the really cool stuff. So in my I'm going to head to the side there. In my content draw here, I'm going to right click on that material that I've just made, which has all my stuff in it. I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to go up to the top where it says create material instance. Now this is where stuff gets really cool. So I'm going to apply that. I'm going to call this m_marble inst. I'm putting inst at the end so I know that it's an instance. Now an instance, well, a material instance in this case is I've got this material, and this isn't a duplicate of that material. What that's doing is it's referencing the material stuff from that original master material. So this is the master marble material right here. Any changes I make in here are going to be reflected in this. But we did set up those two parameters for U tiling and V tiling. If I double click this instance material, we get a bit of a different window. Now we get this. We don't have our node network. Now we have this. And why haven't we? Oh, have we applied it? There we go. Okay, so I just didn't apply it. Whenever you save your materials, make sure you hit apply as well, because it'll apply any settings to the object, to the material. Forgot to do that. So up the top here, we've got global scalar parameter values. And if I bring that down, I've got U tiling and V tiling. So these are those parameters that we exposed in that material network. So what I can do is turn them on and start increasing and decreasing them however I want. So what I'm going to do is just move that to the side for now. I'm going to drag this onto this floor material. So now I've got this instance material applied to the floor. If I start to increase these values, you now see what's happening. So what I can do is say, right, this is going to tile 10 by 10. Oops, a daisy. 10 by 10. So now I'm tiling the floor 10 by 10 on this floor piece. So now it looks a little bit better, you know, looks a little bit nicer. And I can, you know, I can keep tiling it, which is going to be really good if you imagine where you're not working, or you're working on modular pieces, which isn't super super nice squares that fit together. Maybe you're working on something that's a lot more organic, or just something that's a lot more irregular shapes. You might have sections of walls and floors which are just big flat planes, because they have to be, you know, big old flat planes that have just got stuff put on them. What you can do is apply a material to that, one of these instance materials, with that texture coordinate setup on there, and then you can just start tiling the texture on there, and then you know we're all good. And the great thing about this, like I said, is this isn't making a new material. This is making an instance material. So the new data on this is actually very, very minimal, because all it's doing is it's looking at the original material and going, okay, that's what I get to control. I'm going to control that. I'm going to look at the texture on there. I'm going to use that. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to go back to this now. So docu. I'll go back to this. Now we can also expose other parameters. So we expose these two parameters to control this. But what I can do is also on this texture sampler here. Now you can't do this to everything, I should say. On this texture sampler and on this here, I'm going to say, well, this one's easier. I'm going to right click on this one here, convert to parameter, and I'm going to call this roughness, because that's going to control the roughness. So now when I apply, what you'll see here is a roughness value appear. There you go. Now we've got roughness. I can now control the roughness on the fly. So we should be able to see that actually. So now I can control the roughness on this particular instance as I want. So back to here. I can also expose these texture samplers as parameters as well. So I'm going to convert this to parameter. I'm going to call this color. I'm going to convert this one to parameter. I'm going to call this normal. So what this is doing is it's actually giving me slots that I can change stuff in, which is very, very cool. So once again, I'm going to apply this. And then when I go back to that material instance, now what I've got is global texture parameter values. I've now got these. So what I can do is take this texture, take this instance material, change any values that I want. That's not going to affect the master material. It's only going to affect this instance. And then I can also change the different textures that are on here. So what textures have I got? So on this one, I can change to this. I don't know what that is. It's a thin patine. I don't even know if that's a good enough text. I'm just looking for random textures in here. No, these are all going to be, for some reason, not working. Oh, that's why. Cool. Okay, some of them just don't want to work. There you go. So, There we go. So the master material has not changed. The new instance material has changed because I'm changing that particular parameters. But then I can make another instance material of this master material. So I'm going to call this mmarble b inst. So now I've got another instance material. So then I can apply this to this object. So I've just thrown that material, this new material instance, onto this object. So we've got our master material. We've got one instance material applied to the floor, one instance material applied to this, and then again, I can make adjustments to this, and then working independently from me. Very, very cool. Super, super cool. Super, super cool. So there's lots of really fun stuff we can do with all this information. So I'll save that. I'll revert you back to normal. And dock you there. So just to go over, you got a master material, or a material in general. You can make a material and put all your stuff onto that, and that's really good if that material is only going to be ever used once. But if you come across where a situation where you're going to use variations of that material, what you can do is make material instances of it. So you've got your master material, like I've got here. I've got my marble master material, and then I've made two instances of that material. So it's taking the exact same information that's in there, out of all the information that I've exposed through converting to parameter, and then that allows me to actually change those parameters, be it roughness, be it normal map, be it texture map, be it tiling, whatever. So we can do all that kind of jazz. And like I said, these both work independently because these are both being pulled from the same master material, but both the cube and the floor are working independently from each other. They're just referencing the same material, same information. Now if I wanted to control my normal map separately from my UV map, what I'd have to do is set up another bunch of these. So I'll set up another, oops-a-daisy. I set up another bunch of these. So control these, make a bunch. I'm going to release that. Now I'm going to plug this back into here. Now the problem with this is naming conventions are very important. What I've done is just copy pasted this whole setup. So these parameters here are still called u_tiling. So when I actually apply these, I don't get new options. I still get new_tiling here. So if the parameters are called the exact same thing, they'll work together. Now if I want to have the normal map as a different tile setup, what I've got to do is change the name. So I'm going to call this u_norm tiling and then v_norm tiling. So when I apply that, there's a bit of a think, and then there we go. So now I've got my tiling separate. And you can actually see that the tiling is different now because on this I've got my color tiling set to 10, but my normal tiling still set to 10. Still set to 1. So I can expose those and I can start messing around with the normal tiling. So there might be situations where you want to have different normal, like the normal map different to your color map, depending on the materials that you're doing. Loads of fun stuff. So what I can do is set that to 10. 10 and 10. There you go. So that all matches up. Cool. So I'll just call this color UV tiling, and then I'll grab all these, press C, call this normal UV tiling. Awesome. So really, really fun stuff we can do. Now, the next thing is very, very cool, and it's very useful, but it's a little bit tricky. It's not tricky to set up. It's a bit tricky to kind of think about where you can add it into a game and stuff. But it's a thing we said at the beginning where I can add more information to a surface when and if I need it. Now the great example of this is us. Characters in games. You know, you can have a really beautiful zebra sculpt with millions and millions of points of information, and the skin detail is absolutely realistic. But because we have to bake all that information down to either a 2K or a 4K map, or even a 1K map, all that really nice information is not going to translate into a lower resolution map. So we're going to lose quite a bit. So what we can do is get as much as we can in through the sculpt, and then we can use something like a skin detail normal map, which is like, you know, skin pores and stuff, and then we can tile that over the surface, so that it gives us the impression of really, really nice skin detail without having to have 16 or 32,000 pixel maps, which we just don't use. But we're going to set that up in here. So I'm going to set up another one of these. So I'm going to grab these, copy paste, bring it down here, comment that out. This is going to be called normal detail UV tiling. That's going to annoy me. Tiling. There we go. And then I'm going to change these parameter names to U detail tiling. U norm. UND. U normal detailing. VND. V normal detailing. Your tech artist, your art lead is probably going to tell you to name certain things. It all depends on the project you're working on. But I basically set up the exact same thing that I need. So what I need now is a different normal map. So luckily, I've already got one. So if I go to my textures, I've got a normal detail map. So if I open this up, you can see that it's... Don't know how much you can actually see that. I'm actually thinking, did I actually... Yes, I did. I had a bit of a thing thinking, did I actually export the right normal map? I have, but it's a bit hard to see. You'll have to look at the top of the screen here. Because what I've made is basically a tiling normal map. Because what I want to do, I've got this flat marble tiling here, but now what I can do is start to apply a basic tiling information. So I've got that information there. So what I'm going to do is grab that, drag it into my material editor, like that. Now this is actually really simple to set up actually. It's just you don't know what these things are called to actually do this thing. Because if you right click inside the material editor, you've got loads of different stuff here. There's so many different things, there we go. So many different things we can do inside the material editor. And we've even got a lot of Photoshop blend stuff. So we've got Photoshop multiply blends, we've got Photoshop screen blends inside here for if you really want to do some cool like big material information, which I'm kind of restudying it again at the minute. But what I want to use here is I want to use a node which allows me to blend one normal information node in with another normal information node. Now I can't just blend these together with a multiply layer. And that's what I was saying before, you know, we don't just use a multiply layer because this doesn't compute the right information. You'll notice a lot of these have different colors or slightly different colors. These are all depending on the job. So red nodes do a certain thing. Green nodes do a certain thing. Dark green nodes do a certain thing. Blue nodes do a certain thing. I think blue nodes compute float 3 information, which is essentially RGB. Whereas these green nodes compute float 1 or float 2 information, which is basically linear information. Cool. But what I want to use is something called a blend angle corrected normals. Again, some of these terminologies are stupid. When I was looking to do this, when I was trying to find out how to do this, it took me ages to find this. But yeah, this is a blend angle corrected normal. And it comes in like this. And it's actually really simple. I just put my base normal, which is this guy, into the top one where it says base normal. And I take my new one into the additional normal. And then I take both of those into my normal, like that. So it's actually a really, really, really simple one to set up. And I'll just extend this to put my normal map in here. There you go. And I'm also going to expose this as a parameter as well. Expose parameter as a normal detail. There we go, because maybe I want to have access to that later on for whatever reason. Cool. So I'm going to apply that. Gives a bit of a think because it has to add all these different things. I'm going to dock this. There we go. And now you see I've got all these different things. I've got my color node, I've got my normal node, I've got my normal detail node with all these base parameters plugged in. And then I've got my UND and my VND tiling parameters. So let's not close that. Let's rip this off. So like this. There. So what I've done, like I said, is I've applied that normal node, which you can't really see. Ooh, maybe you can see it a little bit there, but you can't really see it that much on here. If I start to increase this to 10, let's say, because this is the one that's applied to the floor. Now I'm doing a 10 by 10. Now I'm doing 20 by 20, so you can see that I'm actually able to do a tile in the area. Now my normal maps are kind of messed up a little bit. Why are they messed up? There you go, issue fixed. So now what I've done is if I run this in simulation, I don't know why I need to run it anyway. So what I've done here is I've just changed some settings. So I'm scaling my both my detail, so my UV tiling, my detail tiling, my UV normal, and my normal. In fact, I'm going to go to I'm making this a little more difficult to do just by simply doing this. So I'm just going to plug that into there. Okay, boom. So now only one parameter controls the general base material tiling. But yeah, so I've got my U tiling, my V tiling at 50. That should be 50. And then my UV normal tiling have gone to 100. So which means I've got two floor tiles per texture tile. Because what my normal map is just one big tile. So if I go to my scene, there we go. So I've got that nice big floor tile thing going on. Without really messing with any of the major settings. You know, I've only got one tile. Oh, sorry, I've only got one material, and I'm just changing some of the parameters to, you know, the tile. Because, you know, with that, I'm going to set my tile to 25 and then 25. Oh, nope, that was the wrong one. That should be 50. That should be 50. So I'm going to set my, yeah, that's 50. That's 50. There you go. So now I've got double the size of a tile. Or I can even go for really crazy stuff. Let's go for something like 500. So now I've got teeny tiny tiles on the floor. Now obviously there are sensible ways to scale these, but you know, just have fun with it. You know, I'm not going to say don't scale within this, don't scale within this, but and the great thing, because I've exposed this normal parameter here, I can bring in another detail map. So I'm going to go into Unreal, in Painter. Hello, Painter. So this is what I've got for the tile at the minute, and it's literally just a tile generator with a single tile in there. But if I did something like this, so I've got this information right there. I'm going to check that my project config is set to DirectX. Yes. I'm going to export this. This is going in, I believe. It should be. Yep, this is going in. Oh, sorry, I've done the wrong one there. There we go. It's going in. So maybe I want some kind of information like this. So I can, again, export that. I'm going to send this to another tab, detail, to like that. Just to be fast, I'm going to make another tab, and I'm just going to have this as 1K. So not a very big map, just 1K. It might look a little bit crap, but you know, we're just experimenting. Excuse me. There you go. And that's done. And really, all I wanted to know map for this anyway. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to find that new normal map. And I've just thought of something. I'm going to have a little bit of a play with something, see if I can be very clever with something. It's probably going to shout at me and say I can't do it, but I'm going to have a play. So there we go. So bring this in. I'm actually going to give it a different name first on my norm. This is my texture normal detail 2. Obviously as well, the name conventions for these will be much better. So there we go. I've got a normal map with some noise in there. And so the very cool thing is, so I've got that tiling information right there. I'm just going to set that tiling back to 1, so it's completely wrong. There you go, so we're losing all that tiling. And I'm going to drag, now that I've turned on that normal tiling channel here, what I'm going to do is drag in that second normal map I've just brought in into that position. And you see the surface gets a little bit weird. That's because that normal map is on there. Look at that. So now I can tile that. So let's go for 10 by 10. So my entire surface has got a new kind of quality to it. 25 by 25. Look at that, it's even better. So now my flooring has this nice grain to it. I've still got the original normal map, and now I'm just adding this new normal map underneath. But I've lost my tiles. Now I've lost my tiles. So what my little brain, and literally, this isn't me kind of like trying to be like, oh, I just thought of something. Literally, I've just thought of something. What if I try and do a blend into a blend into a blend? Let's see if we can do that. So what I want to do is basically make this be my tile, and then I'm going to copy the entire thing again. Grab that. There we go. Oops, a daisy. Oh, I have super messed up. There you go. There we go. That's what I want. And I've got to think about this. So I'm going to just copy this. So this going into this. I'm working backwards now. And then this is my base, and then this is my additional. And this is my detail normal B. And this is my normal B. This is my normal B. So change the name. So now I should have, I'm wondering if this is even going to work. So this is my normal one, which is being blended in with this one. So pretend that this node doesn't exist. This is going straight into there, essentially. And now with this new normal map is being blended in with this new one. So see if this works. Okay. So I'm exposing my parameters there. So I've got the actual parameters in there, but as I start to change stuff, so tiling B is my noise. So if I start to up that, okay, so that's tiling. That's nice. And I'm going to put my original into there. Yep. Oh, I think it will work. Okay, so I'm going to put that as 30. I'm going to be weird and put it as 30. 50. There we go. There you go. So I can do it. So what I've done there is I've got two normal maps blending into each other using parameters so that I can control the size of both of them. So I'm controlling the size of this normal map. So if I make it really big, I can make it like scratchy, although it's not look very good doing that. If I go to 100 on both the B's. Oh, that's 10, you fool. That's so grainy it's not even kind of showing up. So there you go, increase by 50. So now what I've got is some really nice. I've got 3 normal maps. Yeah, I've got 3 normal maps blended into each other with all the controls set up, so I can apply all these different things. Very, very cool. And I'm sure this isn't like the most efficient way of doing stuff as well, because we're just experimenting, and for what we're doing, it's totally fine. And I'm sure some material artists will say, well, actually, if they're working on big, massive AAA games, I'm sure someone will come up to you and go like, well, actually, that's not the most efficient way of making a material for this big game, because maybe the fact that I'm using a couple of 1K normal maps and I'm tiling it, even though tiling shouldn't really affect anything, maybe it is doing something that I'm not really thinking about. But for this, it's not having an effect. It's not affecting my runtime. I've got loads of control. I can change parameters. I can do whatever I want. I can even do something as stupid as where's my materials? Well, I'd have to switch this out, because what I'm going to do is just literally make a color node. Switch that out. Put that in. Oh, I guess we don't really need that. So now I can make black, kind of coated marble flooring, like that. Very cool. And you can see anything I update on my master material gets updated on the other materials as well. It's just the other instances, they got populating like that. It's just the other instances are just different. They're just working differently. So here, this single one here, I've not affected any of the instances on this. So if I open up that particular one, I can, again, just move it to the side. So I'm going to change my tiling to, say, 2x2. So now I've got a 2x2 floor tile in there, which is nice. But then I'm going to set my noise to, say, 3x3. So then I've got really kind of grainy noise on the floor. Oh, 2x2. I've got all that control. And I'm still a student myself with this kind of stuff. I know how to do this kind of stuff. I know how to do a lot more with it. But there are other things. There's certain things I'm still kind of working out and playing with. And the great thing about this, it is just playing. Think about something you want to do, and then once you start looking into how to do certain things, it then starts opening up other things. And some of them are completely stupid, like flex materials. I love flex materials. They're materials which have got no point. They're really not very useful for games, but they're just fun to do. Or you want to give the impression of, a new one for me that I'm working on at the minute is trying to work out a way of having a ground look like it's been hit by rain without actually having it hit by rain. And I think I've got it sort of out, because all I've got to do is give it the illusion that that's happening, all that kind of like dappling of water against the surface and things running down the side, rain running down the side of surfaces. I think I've got it figured out. I've just got to figure out how to do it in the material editor. So yeah, that's some really fun stuff we can do with materials. The last one I'll show you is completely useless, but it's still quite fun. But I guess we can use this kind of thing for something. So I'm going to make this be a new material altogether. I'm going to call this fun. And all I'm going to do for this is give myself two constants. Oh, sorry. Yeah, two constant 3. So I'm just holding 3 and making those. And I'm giving myself a multiply. No, I'm going to give myself a lerp, sorry. A lerp. So there are things called lerps, or linear interpolations. And when you linearly interpolate something, it's a fancy way of saying move between 2 points. If you linear just means line, interpolate, move between. You move in between 2 things in a straight line. That's all it means. So I'm going to hold L and click there. So basically what I'm going to do is move between red to blue. So I'll change this to red. I change this to blue. That's all I'm going to do. So red is going to be bep, blue is going to be bep, like that. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Boom. So I'm going to plug that in. Now nothing's going to happen except seeing red or seeing purple because, okay, so we're seeing purple because when you red and blue something, you effectively you're going to blend the colors together. We're getting a halfway point linear interpolation. So the halfway point between red and blue is purple. You have got this alpha here. So if I say alpha 1, it's going to bias the blue. If I say alpha 0, it's going to bias the red. I can make a control with like a normal constant value there and have that as some sort of numeric control. Although it won't do anything past 1. So that's more of a pink because it's more red than blue. But what I'm going to do is move in between them automatically. So the colours, there's my colours. I'll put them, that colour. Now you got the alpha here. Again, some of the terminology can be a bit weird, especially when we come from solely a 2D background. The alpha here is used for many different things. What we got to think about this alpha being is something's got to get plugged into that, which is going to control the interpolation. And what I'm going to do is make a sine wave, and a sine wave is, we've all seen them, it kind of does this up and down. Yeah, it kind of does this, like a spectrogram and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna make a sine wave that is going to be controlled by something that's going to control the time, the duration, and then I'm also going to control something where I can actually bias between red and blue. So how are we going to do that? Very, very simple, he says. So I want a sine because I just want to go between, I want to go from red to blue, to red to blue. That's all I'm going to do, sine wave. So I'm going to, if I sine, S-I-N-E, sine, mathematical equation, right there. And then I want a time node because this time node is controlling the duration of. So I put time and I get time. There you go. So I'm going to plug that time node into the sine wave. And I'm going to plug the sine wave into the alpha. And you can see it's moving. So it's going because that's being controlled by a standard period. But what I can do is, if I click on the time node here, I've got period. So I can click period here, and then I can say, right, okay, this whole period is going to take 10 seconds. So it's going to go through this. And then I can say I'll do this backwards. So this is still something I'm kind of trying to figure out. So have I done this right? I think I've done this right. I think I've done this right. Anyway, yeah, because the time node should be the time it takes, the duration. So the period, say, let's say it's 10 seconds. And during that 10 seconds, I should do 10 sine waves. But that should mean it's sort of like 1 a second. Oh no, so yeah, so this is what again, some of this is a little bit brain buggy. So my time controls the duration. So that is going to be 10 seconds. And then this is going to say, I'm basically going to divide. So if I want to do 3 sine waves over 10 seconds, I can't divide 3 into 10 equally. So I've got to go, in here, I've got to go 3.33. And then that should be 3, as even as I can, even distributions. Yeah. It's still kind of a bit tricky to work out. Again, I've got to do a bit of reading in this, but this is basically a basic setup, though I am kind of like fumbling through a little bit, of how to do a simple kind of panner material inside here. Again, I'm going to have to read up these a little bit more, because I thought I had it the other day, but apparently I've not. So that's a basic setup. I've got another thing I can put in this chain after the sine wave that will then allow me to kind of do some other cool stuff. Well, one extra cool stuff. So this is called a constant bias. Constant bias scale. That's what it is. A constant bias scale. What this is going to do is this is going to allow me to control the depth of the sine. And if you imagine the sine is currently going into equal amounts red and equal amounts blue, I can say, right, I'm going to bias you towards red. So there's more red being shown for longer, and then a bit of blue. More red, bit of blue. Or I can bias it towards blue, where it's a little bit of red, more blue, kind of thing. So I can plug that into there, and then plug that into there. There you go. So currently, it's biasing red more than blue, because the scale is set to 0.5, so we're half the size of the normal sine wave. It's half the size, but then we've moved it up by 1 unit, so it spends more time in red than it does in blue. But because we can only go so much into red, it'll just basically hit red and look like it doesn't do anything for a little bit, but it touches blue very quickly. But what I can do is I can say, right, we're going to set the bias to nothing, so there's no bias. Put the bias to like -1 to 1 and scale to. Again, this is stuff so you can just kind of play around with and see what happens. Okay, so we bias at 0.5 and the scale set to 1. It's a normal scale, and we're getting halfway in between both of them. Again, I got to look at some of these mathematics, but basically what it gives me is a stupid little thing. It's just it's linearly interpolating between two colors. Very, very simple. And there's other things you can do. There's other time elements you can do. There are other kind of patterns you can do. There's something called a panner, where you literally just move in across something, but it's not going to work on this because these are solid colors, so you can't actually use it on this. There's also something called a hue shift node. Which I believe if I just put a time into this, there you go. So I can use this hue shift node with this time to travel through the hue shifts. I believe the lower the number, the faster I go. The higher the number, the slower I go. Yeah. To a point, I guess. Again, this is stuff that I'm still kind of messing with and playing with, but lots of fun stuff. So that's a bit of a mess around material, let's call it. I have a couple of these set up in projects where I'm just basically messing around with materials, and it's a bit of a mess. And this is the project actually I'm working on, working in at the minute. But the main ones we were looking at there was this material, where we've got some UV tiling using a texture coordinate node that we then use a constant node, holding one clicking to make a constant. We're exposing that to converting that to a parameter, and then we're using those to control the UV tiling of both the normal and the color map for this. And then I'm just using a converted to parameter to control my roughness. And then I'm using a blend angle corrected normals node to basically blend in another normal map, so I can tile that again using the whole tiling setup. I can tile that. So in this case, I've got my normal marble information, and then I'm tiling over a literal tile, so I can actually have tiles over the surface. And then into that, I'm also doing another blended corrected normal node, where I'm actually just doing general noise, so I can have nice, clean, flat information, and then I can increase the noise. And what I'll be able to do with this as well, not a panner, that's not what I want. I want a power. I believe if I put a power node into here, power node, because what this power node does is basically control the amount of power. It powers something, increases something. So if I do this, so I'm plugging this null map into this power, and then I'm using a constant to basically control the amount of power, how intense something is. If I put the 10, this might not work how I want it to. Okay, so we got that. So I can get rid of that. Is it the lower the number, the powerful? Yeah, okay. So the lower the number, the more powerful it is. So I can control the power, the amount of information, the strength of the normal map through this power node. Not always useful, because that looks like a pile of crap. From a distance, it kind of looks like sandstone, I guess. But up close, it's not going to look good. That does not look good. But again, that's just another fun thing we can do. You know, we can expose this as a parameter and call this power. And then set that to like 0.5. So at 0.5, that's your default. Your 1, actually no, I think 1 is default. I think. Again, just kind of messing with it. It's probably not right, but we're just having to mess around. Again, fun stuff you can do with materials. And I would really encourage people just to spend a bit of time messing around with materials. Have fun with them. Cool, so that's a nice little mess around one. Just under an hour. Have fun.